This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. Sorry for the delay. We have an amazing subject today. Today is Purim Katan, but we're going to talk about first connecting Parshas Tetzaveh to the time of the year, Davar, Yafeh, Be'itai. How are we going to connect Parshas Tetzaveh to the Zman Hashanah? So, B'siyata D'Shmaya, these ideas I wrote on the plane last night. So hopefully it will be niskabel. Let me try to bring up the Ramakoimos. Here we go. Parshas Tetzaveh. Number one, Parshas Tetzaveh is almost always the Parsha that we read before Purim. That being the case, because we always read it before Purim, it's almost always the Shabbos of the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu. So in other words, the Shabbos of Zayin Adar, the Shabbos following Zayin Adar, is almost always Parshas Tetzaveh. And it's brought in the name of the Gra, in the Divrei Eliyahu, in the beginning of Tetzaveh, that as you all know, Parshas Tetzaveh is the one Parsha that Moshe Rabbeinu's name is not mentioned. Why? Because Parshas Tetzaveh is always the week of Zayin Adar. There are only a few rare instances that Parshas Tetzaveh falls out either after Zayin Adar, or meaning in a different week, or in a Shana Mubaras. And Hashem foresaw from the beginning of generations, he knew that Zayin Adar Moshe Rabbeinu would pass away, and therefore Moshe Rabbeinu's name is not in this week's Parsha to be merames to that. So it comes out, firstly, that Parshas Tetzaveh is very appropriately read this time of the year, as what could be more appropriate to the week of Moshe's Patira than the Parsha that doesn't have his name. Now, the Megala Amukais in Va'aschanan says something out of this world. Okay? Does anybody know how many psukim are in this week's Parsha? We know there are 101 psukim in this week's Parsha. What's the significance of that? If you take the word Moshe, and you take the hidden letters of the letters Moshe. Moshe is Mem, Shin, Hey. Moshe is Mem, Shin, Hey. But Mem is spelled Mem, Mem, and Shin is spelled Shin, Yud, Nun, and Nun is spelled, Hey is spelled Hey, Aleph. And the hidden letters are Mem, so in other words, the hidden letter of Mem is a Mem, because Mem is spelled Mem, Mem. The open letter of Mem is the Mem. In other words, like this. Let's say you want to spell the letter Mem. Mem is spelled Mem, Mem. The first Mem is the revealed part of the letter. That's the part that is seen in the spelling of the word. And the silent letter, the letter that's not seen, is the final Mem. So Shin is Shin, Yud, Nun. The revealed is the Shin, the hidden is the Yud and the Nun. Hey is Hey, Aleph. The revealed is the Hey, and the hidden is the Aleph. So the revealed of Moshe is Mem, Shin, Hey. The hidden is Mem, Yud, Nun, Aleph. The gematria of the hidden letters of Moshe, Mem, Yud, Nun, Aleph, is Kuf Aleph, 101. Therefore, when Moshe Rabbeinu was hidden, we have the number 101. So since Moshe Rabbeinu's name does not appear in this week's Parsha, and Moshe is hidden, therefore there are 101 psukim in this week's Parsha. You get it? You get the connection? The word Moshe has a revealed part and a hidden part. The revealed is the Mem, Shin, Hey. The hidden is Mem, Yud, Nun, Aleph. And therefore, when Moshe Rabbeinu is hidden, the number that we're dealing with is 101. That's why there are 101 psukim in Parshas Tetzaveh. We explained that's why the Parsha begins Leha'alois Ner Tamid, to light a Ner always. This, I believe, is a remez that to a Ner Zikaron for the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu. Since Parshas Tetzaveh is the Parsha of the Petira of Moshe Rabbeinu, therefore the letters of Therefore, the Parsha begins, Lahalois Ner Tamid, referring to lighting a Ner, so to speak. This week's Parsha is a Ner Tamid for the Neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu. Another idea, if you look in Medrash Talpios, in the Erech of Big Day Kahuna, that Achashverosh used Big Day Kahuna. Chazal say, Tiferes Gedula say, that Achashverosh actually utilized Big Day Kahuna in his quest to make his Suda. And he was trying to be Mavato, the Kedusha of the Big Day Kahuna. By wearing Big Day Kahuna, Achashverosh was trying to be Mavato, the Kedusha of Big Day Kahuna. So therefore we could explain that this is the reason why we read about the Big Day Kahuna in this week's Parsha, in order to Mavato the Tumah of Achashverosh. Achashverosh wanted to Mavato the Kedusha of Big Day Kahuna, and therefore we read about the Big Day Kahuna to Mavato the Tumah of Achashverosh. My friend Rabbi Yisrael Eliezer Levi shared that the Kedushas Levi says that the word Adar is a lashon of cloak, clothing, Adaras, Malbush, and therefore in the month of Adar we could say we read about the Big Day Kahuna in order to be mischazek in the inyan of Adar, which is Big Day Kedusha. Now it's very interesting. The Balaturim points out 3 times in Tanakh we have the word Vinishma, Vinishma, and it will be heard. Okay, not Nishma, but Vinishma. 3 times in Tanakh we have the word Vinishma. One is in this week's Parsha, Vinishma Koiloi Bevoyoi El HaKodesh. The Balaturim says that the 3 Vinishmas are, number 1, Vinishma Koiloi Bevoyoi El HaKodesh. That could be a reference to Tefillah. Your voice will be heard when you come into the sanctuary. You have the word Vinishma, Naaseh Vinishma. We will do and we will listen. That's referring to Torah. And Vinishma Piskam HaMelech, in Megillas Esther, we have the word Vinishma, namely the reading of the Megillah. Says the Balaturim, Vinishma Piskam HaMelech, B'chol Medinois Malchusoi Ki Rabbahu. Rabbah says in the Gemara Megillah that if you have a choice between Mikra Megillah and Talmud Torah, Mikra Megillah takes precedence, because if you want to know what to do, Vinishma Piskam HaMelech, or Nasa Vinishma, or Torah, we say Vinishma Piskam HaMelech. Why? Ki Rabbahu. Because Torah is, because Megillas Esther is greater. Then, if you want to know what comes first, Tefillah, Avoida, or Mikra Megillah, Mevatlin Avoida, Uban Lishmaya Mikra Megillah, because it says, Vinishma Koiloi, Bevoyoi El HaKodesh. Vinishma Koiloi Bevoyoi El HaKodesh. Do you do Avoida, Tefillah, or do you read the Megillah, Vinishma Piskam HaMelech? And the answer is Vinishma Piskam HaMelech, Ki Rabbahu. Tefillah is greater. So in this week's Parsha, we have the pasuk Vinishma Koiloi Bevoyoi El HaKodesh, from which we learn that when a person's in the middle of doing Vinishma Koiloi Bevoyoi El HaKodesh, nevertheless they stop and they interrupt to hear the Megillah, because Vinishma Piskam HaMelech B'chol Malchusai Ki Rabbahu. So in this week's Parsha is the source that Mikra Megillah trumps Avoida. By the way, and where does it say Nasa Vinishma? That's in Mishpatim, another Parsha that we read in Chodesh Adar. Now, we have this week, the first time, the expression called Reach Nichayach. Reach Nichayach means a pleasant aroma. What does that mean, it's a pleasant aroma? How is a carbon a pleasant aroma? Rashi says, I get nachas when you bring a carbon. Why? Because I spoke, I asked you to do something, and you did what I wanted. I spoke, and you did what I wanted. What do we see from here? From here we see that the greatest nachas ruach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is to listen to Him. More than doing anything else, more than any mitzvah, the greatest nachas ruach is to listen to Hashem. That's something that we always need to bear in mind, and something that sometimes we forget. Sometimes we think Hashem wants us to do exceptionally great achievements. The greatest nachas ruach you could do to Hashem is just listen to Him. Now, in most years, the Haftarah of this week's Parsha is the Haftarah of Parshas Zachar. And in the Haftarah, we usually read that Shaul said, well, I didn't kill Amalek because I made a calculation. And what does Shmuel say? No. Hine shemaya mizevach toiv. It's better to listen than to bring a good carbon. Better to follow the halacha than to give a big donation. So that's thematic to the Parsha, and the idea of Reach Nichayach, that it brings Hashem nachas when we do His will, is definitely Davar Yafeh Be'itai, because this time of the year, which normally we have to remember to kill Amalek, and as historically Shaul did, people are in danger of mistakenly making calculations of why this is not correct or it's not the right time. So we read in the Parsha, Hine Shemaya Mizavach Toiv, that it's a nachas ruach to Hashem when we do His will. Okay. Very interestingly, there is a raya in this week's Parsha to a halacha regarding Mishleach Manos. How so? The Magen Avram brings the machlokes. Can you send someone raw meat for Mishleach Manos? Interesting question. It's not edible right now, but it could be cooked and become edible. The Magen Avram in Sivkot and Yud Aleph brings from the Marshal that it has to be cooked. And the Pri Chadash holds, I was just in Livorno on Wednesday, and we found the kever of Rabbi Yehuda Saraf, who's the Rebbe of the Pri Chadash. Pri Chadash in Sivkot and Dalet says that as long as the cow is shechted and could be cooked immediately, you could send it for Mishleach Manos. So, some achroinim, the Chavos Yair and the Makar Chayim, in Sim Tafrei Tzadi Hesef Daled, and the Hamek Shela in Parshas Vayakel Ois Tes, they bring a raya from this week's Parsha that a raw meat is considered a maneh. Why? It says in this week's Parsha, Perek Chav Tes Pasuk Chavav, V'lakachta es hechaza me'el hamiluim asher la'aharoin v'hinavta oisay tnufa l'fnei Hashem v'haya l'cha l'mana. Now Moshe, when he took the portion of meat, it was not cooked. He took raw meat. So from here we see raw meat is called a maneh, and therefore the Chavos Yair and the Netziv both say that you could be yotzei Mishleach Manos with raw meat. However, I would say that the raya could be pushed off a little bit. That granted, we see that raw meat is called a maneh, but that doesn't mean that you could fulfill the requirement of Mishleach Manos with raw meat. Because if the reason for Shalach Manos is to ensure that people have food for their Suda, and you want to provide them food for their Suda, maybe if the food is raw, you're not Mekayim the mitzvah. Not because it's a lack in the maneh, but rather because it is, not because it's a lack in the mitzvah, but because it's not fulfilling the reason of the mitzvah. Okay, one last offering. The Parsha ends off, V'chiper aharon al karnois v'achas b'shana. Aaron will bring atonement on its corners once a year. Rashi says, what does it mean once a year? Rashi says, on Yom HaKippurim. Now, we already mentioned, most years, Parshas Tetzaveh is the Shabbos before Purim. So, isn't it significant that the Parsha concludes with the Avodah of Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur is Yom Kippurim, like in Tikkunei Zayar it teaches us. So the Parsha ends off the Kapara of Yom Kippur in order to teach us that there's a connection between this time of the year, Purim, and Yom Kippur. Okay, that is offering number 1, Davar Yafeh Be'itai.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.